Good morning, listeners and viewers. A very warm welcome to you on Friday, the 26th of January 2024. You're listening to Ammar, sadly without Jaff this morning. He's otherwise engaged, or sadly he is slightly unwell. So you're going to have to put up with my dulcet tones. I'm phoning a few friends. I'm encouraging people to jump on and share what they do, why they do it, where they do it. So, but in the meantime, let's get the show on the road. You're listening to Ammar without Jaff, live on Spice FM. Each week, we bring you news, views, and one or two clues from the business world. Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider community. So whether you have a existing business, want to talk business, or don't have a business, we can help, and we have helped. Gosh, it's been another incredibly busy week this week, and we had our amazing inclusion by default campaign conference yesterday, where we launched the conference proper. And actually, what I'll probably do, if I may, is share with you the presentation or from the conference, and and also talk you through what went on, how it went on, and and why it was such a brilliant day is what it was. So let me do a couple of things. Let's see what happens if it still is the same presentation that I'd pulled together. Um, yeah, it certainly is. So anyway, let's share with you the standard presentation, and so that we can get the show on the road. I feel as if I should be playing some music because I'm by myself, but I'll probably do that in a little bit, is what I'll probably do. But in the meantime, this is show business. It's the only business that talks, and it's the only show that talks business right here on Spice FM. Although there's lots of wonderful shows that feature on Spice FM every single day. And as I mentioned, we hosted the Inclusion by Default conference yesterday. And the Inclusion by Default campaign is all around trying to help make the Northeast the most inclusive region in the UK by the end of 2025. It's great to have so many people supporting this ambition. And it's quite interesting to hear from so many people who say you couldn't possibly do it in 2 years. And then I sort of sit back and I think, yeah, you're possibly right. But wouldn't it be great if we could? Wouldn't it be amazing if our Northeast and my Northeast is the whole of the Northeast? So that goes all the way down to North Yorkshire. So Darlington, Redcar, Hartlepool, Middlesbrough, Stockton, all of those places and spaces are at the bottom of the Northeast. And at the top, we've got the likes of Northumberland, all the way up to Berwick and the border with Scotland. And we go all the way across to adjoin Cumbria. and somewhat towards Carlisle as well. So it's a big place. It's a big space. It's 2.6 million people is there or thereabouts that exist, coexist, and there's lots of individual identities. There's lots of communities. There's lots of different and unique people that live, work, and play in our wonderful region. And for the last few years, Asian Business Connections has been trying to work on inclusion. And it's not purely around race or gender or diverse. It's more absolutely around the diversity of different people. So people from particular areas. So where social mobility happens and exists, or social immobility, as I might describe it. And it's recognizing the rural farming communities to the city dwellers and everything and everyone in between. So my point around inclusion is we're asking people three things. What does inclusion mean to you? So what does inclusion mean to you is the first. And there's no right or wrong answer. And I'll probably share with you some of the feedback that we've had up until now. The second one is, what does an inclusive organization look like? Or what should an inclusive organization look like? And the third one is, what should or could an inclusive Northeast look like? Now, if everybody simply turned around and said, it's a region where everybody says hello to each other, because right now they don't, and there's no other region that does that, well, then all of a sudden we've become the most inclusive region in the UK. But I just feel as if that's probably too easy of a thing to suggest, but it might be. And this is a journey, so we don't see us getting to the end of 2025 and going, woo, we've done something and that's the end of it. We see it continuing, improving. It's a place, it's a space, it's a sense of belonging. It's a where everyone feels as if they can contribute and participate, is what the Inclusion by Default campaign is trying to do. It's absolutely trying to address some of those inequalities, racism, discrimination, health inequalities, financial poverty, digital inequalities, all of those things it's trying to support. But in essence, it's first and foremost, it just needs to be a campaign that allows people to have a conversation. And it's not a conversation that everybody needs to agree with. And it's not a conversation that should intentionally offend other people, but it should be an uncomfortable conversation that allows people to ask those questions that they may sit there with all of the time. Why does that person dress like that? Why does that person look like that? Why does that person wear a hijab? Why does they follow that religion? Why does that person go to church? What is God? Why do they follow God? All of these type of things. Who is God? Where is God? Maybe not that level of religious engagement, but why not is the point. So yesterday we'd hosted the Inclusion by Default conference, and where we had around about 120 people come together at my regiment, 101 regiment, the 204 battery in Kingston Park. And let me take you through that particular presentation so that I can share with you the benefit of the the day. So here we go. Inclusion by default, aiming for the Northeast to be the most inclusive region in the UK by the end of 2025. And we haven't qualified what that exactly means because it can mean so many different things to so many different people. So at the minute, we're at that data analysis gathering stage. We're asking people to answer those questions that I've mentioned. And I would encourage you to all do that, please. And if you do a Google search on ABC inclusion by default, you should be led to the website where you can submit your comments. And we're sort of judging, where and how inclusion takes place and where is it positive, where do people feel excluded and such like. So the conference, as I mentioned, had about 120 people in it. And I mentioned the fact that it was being kindly held and hosted by the Royal Artillery in Kingston Park in a venue that could cater to those numbers because I'm the incredibly proud honorary colonel of that regiment, the first non-military person, the first ethnic Asian person to be appointed by the late Her Majesty the Queen as her honorary colonel for the Royal Artillery 101 Regiment. And it's an incredibly proud honour. I was mentioning when I wear that uniform, I feel as if I belong there. I feel part of something special, and I feel as if I'm part of that community. And community was one of the things that clearly people felt that contributes and contributed to the sense of inclusion. That's me. For those of you who can see me, so I'm for the benefit of our Spice listeners, I'm currently going through a presentation which I'll talk at. You won't have the benefit of the visual slides or the visual experience, but if you so wish, you're very, very welcome to watch the video, which will be broadcast on YouTube, on our newsletter, and online on the ABC website is what you can. And actually the number of people, every single community, every single sector I felt was represented there. We had organizations representing disabled people like Percy Headley. We had Connected Voice representing lots of different diverse communities. We had the wonderful Spice FM there, and Sandeep equally representing as the president of the Newcastle Hindu Temple. And we had members from every religious group, mainstream, and we had a variety of ages as well. What I probably, upon reflection, would like to do is connect more meaningfully with younger people and children and young people as well to help shape the narrative and the plan. The room was filled with vibrancy, positivity, and as I say, I'm taking you through the presentation this morning. So ABC, a few weeks back, when I mentioned to someone we're hosting this conference, they sort of suggested, are you not just jumping on the woke bandwagon? There's not everybody talking about this agenda. And I reflected and I sort of responded by saying, no, we're not. Me personally, I was born, brought up here in the Northeast, in Newcastle. Yes, I've worked across the UK and globally, very fortunate. But I've always found the Northeast to be my home, and I'm immensely proud of that. But that said, have equally experienced abuses from every sense, racism, and all of that, and discrimination, even up until the point of a couple of years back. I was persecuted by a public body and things like that. I've continued to experience these challenges that lots of other people have experienced. When we set up ABC, it was to try and address some of these inequalities and the racism and the prejudices, but more relevantly, around providing a platform that supported the Asian community and the Asian business community, creating a sense of belonging, somewhere for them to come, somewhere for them to get support that they needed, we needed. But my ambition, when Jaff and I had those conversations with a variety of people, sadly, some who aren't around now, and in particular, my late father, Jaff's late father, Jaff's uncle, they were all involved in the formation of Asian Business Connections. And in fact, my late father named Asian Business Connections at its birth. But whilst we were prioritizing the Asian community, our ambition was always to make it an inclusive organization. And that's why from the outset, we have always invited, encouraged, and supported every community. And we've ran a number of programs from the Beacon in the West End and all over the Northeast to support people regardless of their colour, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their gender. We've supported people to get into employment. We've supported people to open businesses. We've even ran chef type courses and cooking courses with Newcastle College and done a whole host of things, but none of it has been exclusively for a certain community. And it's on that premise around inclusion that I feel qualified, and the work that we've done with the All Parliamentary Party Group for ethnic minority businesses, the work that we've done with the Yorkshire and Northwest Asian business associations, the work that we've done regionally on race, equality, inequalities, and discrimination. That we are in a credible position to be championing this and doing so at a time when the world seems to be so divisive. So I responded to that individual who asked me, are you just jumping on a bandwagon? And sort of said, no, we've been working on this for a very long time. We launched the Asian Women Enterprising campaign, the Awesome campaign, several years ago, platformed, promoted lots of Asian women across all sectors doing amazing things, for the intention of encouraging others to realize their ambition and raise their aspiration. So ABC launched the Inclusion by Default campaign a few years back, and we've been building it up and we've been developing it out. And as we've been doing that for over 15 years, we've connected, supported, and promoted thousands of people. Our curry clubs are probably one of the best networking club events that you can go to, with wonderful curry. Our award ceremony on an annual basis is regularly sold out, oversubscribed, and the feedback we get from everybody is this is the best award ceremony I've ever been to. It's fun, it's engaging, it's inclusive, and everybody has a great time. So on that basis, we've continued in our vein to connect, support, and promote. And that's why we're continuing to champion inclusion, regardless of space, place, or people. So what was the purpose of the day? It was a safe space to have open and meaningful conversations It was to capture what inclusion means to us personally and professionally. It was start to co-create a roadmap to help make the Northeast the most inclusive region by the end of 2025 at personal, organisational and community level, and develop a community of champions. Basically, it was a jam-packed day where we had interaction, action, and we had some amazing guest speakers. We had wonderful food, and then we got into the YOLA Inclusive Innovation Framework, which I'll touch upon in a minute or two. When we talk about inclusion, what's really important is the ability to get out your comfort zone, and we all need to get out of our comfort zones, is what we need to do. And that's why it's important to recognize what happens within your comfort zone and why it's such a big deal, and why it's important to do things both in your comfort zone as well as outside your comfort zone. But the magic really happens is when you get out, when you feel a bit uncomfortable, not stressed, not like incredible anxiety levels, but when you're feeling slightly pushed, when you're feeling a bit challenged, that's where you grow. We used inclusive approaches, so we had post-it notes, we had sticky dots, we used an application called Mentimeter, which allows you to do surveys, immediate surveys, and capture those responses. So I then started by asking and explaining why inclusion matters. So there's a whole range of sort of real factual elements to inclusion, which include social justice, equality, diversity, perspectives and innovation, economic benefits, improved quality of life, the reduction of discrimination and prejudice, legal and ethical compliance, and personal development. And recognizing that inclusion influences and impacts all of these things, and the importance of all of these things cannot be overstated. But I then went on to tell a story, because I picked up an incredible story not that long ago around inclusion, and it was a children's story by Ella Richardson, and it's called The Bears and the Bees. And it's a story about a school where bees went to this school, and everyone was called busy, and they all looked the same, and they all done the same. And then one day, a big, hairy, grizzly bear walked in and said, "Hello, I'm Grizzle." And everyone said, "You don't belong here. You look stupid. You're silly." And then he was really upset because he didn't fit in. And then so he decided that he would go away and come back the next day dressed as a bee, and everyone laughed at him. And he was like, "You laughed at me when I looked different, you laugh at me when I look the same, but actually, why should there be any laughing around people who are different?" And it's a great story. It's a simple story. It had a profound message and a profound impact, but it really conveyed the message in far better way than I could have ever done so. And it was written by a 12-year-old. So I then asked, what did a story mean to you? And what's your story? And then I actually, I mentioned my daughter, Zora. And the reason why I mentioned my daughter, Zora, was because it was her storybook. And I asked her, what did the story mean to her? And she said that she had said that that she, well, I'll let her explain what she said.
Zara, we read this book yesterday. What was the book about?
It means like that they were not being mean, and they need to be respectful, and everyone's different.
Thank you.
And that was Zora's response. But more relevantly to the Northeast. In the Northeast, 27% of people report experiencing discrimination at work due to their age, gender, race, sexuality, or a disability. And life expectancies in the Northeast are nearly 2 years below the national average. 8% of the Northeast is offline, and 32% experience low digital engagement. In the Northeast, women earn an average of 73% of what men earn. In the Northeast, people with a disability are only half as likely to be employed as people without a disability. And of the 9 regions in the UK, the Northeast ranks worst for deaths from preventable causes. So that are things like suicide and a range of drug overdoses and self-inflicted type of causes, preventable ones. So, and I mentioned as I was coming into work earlier on this week that I was listening to a radio show. Obviously, I listen to Spice primarily, but I was listening to Radio 4, and they were advertising a series called Woke Washing, and it started yesterday at 4 p.m. And it talks about the principles of organizations ticking boxes, sort of saying that they're inclusive and sort of showcasing and showboating their inclusive approaches, but they don't really mean it, only to get customers and such like. God forbid that ever happens. So woke washing is something that we're trying to prevent and highlight as well, because really, if you're going to join this journey of inclusion, then you need to do so meaningfully with the conviction that leads to meaningful change and a real difference to everyone that you connect with. And it's not all bad, though. So it's really important for us to recognize that the Northeast is a beautiful space. You've got the coast, you've got city, you've got rural, you've got you've got a whole range of places and spaces. The countryside. Where else can you go from the coast to countryside and a city all within 30 minutes? Where else are they the most positive, passionate, proud people than the Northeast? We're friendly, we're hospitable in the main, and we love our region. At least everyone that I talk to shares that. And the amount of people I hear and talk to who say who weren't born or brought up here, going, it feels like one of the best kept secrets, the Northeast. And our Northeast, when they say I moved here and my family's here, I grew up and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, the quality of life is amazing. And it is, and from a jobs perspective, there's lots of opportunities. I was at my LEP board meeting where I chair the business advisory board, and I'm the SME representative on that board. I was delighted to hear of the economic current position of our region and how the economy there's a lot more businesses starting up. There's a lot more people in jobs, and the work of the LEP has helped create 110,000 jobs in the 10 years of the strategic economic plan. So it's not all bad, is the point. And there's some great jobs in offshore, autonomous vehicles, green, but not everybody connects with those jobs and not everybody is interested in those jobs. So we need to educate and share a little bit more as we do what we do. And it's not about reinventing the wheel. So the Inclusion by Default campaign isn't about reinventing the wheel. There's loads of things that already go on. Armed Forces Covenant helps join up employers to recognize the benefits of connecting with the armed forces, veterans. You know, if you employ a veteran, you're going to get someone who's absolutely committed, work ready, devoted, and diligent is what you're going to do. And now there's a bit of a focus on cadets and such like. There's the Health and Life Science Pledge. By the way, incredibly proud holder of a gold award for the Armed Forces Covenant. The Health and Life Sciences Pledge, North East and North Cumbria, is something I helped establish, which brings the health and life science sector together. All parliamentary party group for ethnic minority business owners, an avid, staunch supporter of that. There's organizations like Show Racism the Red Card, the Good Work Pledge, where we are advanced accredited individuals, United Nations, the LEP, the Tees Valley Combined Authority, Primary Inspiration through Enterprise, charity that we helped establish that introduces enterprise activities into schools. And just over the last few weeks has connected with lots of schools, supported hundreds of children to deliver enterprise activities where children actually experience coding, STEM, and then they're going to set up and run their own business for profit. So they're getting real experiences rather than real life, rather than virtual ones is the point. And then there's lots of organizations who support disabilities, Percy Headley, and all of those. Anyway, the point is, it's about raising the profile of those organizations. And obviously, Spice FM here, who connects so well with so many different communities. And why belonging matters was the next point. And then we ran through this inclusion ignition, which illustrates and demonstrates what Yola and the SME Centre of Excellence has done. And the SME Centre of Excellence that I established 8 years ago now has developed and delivered hundreds of accelerator and scale up programs and supported thousands of organizations with demonstrable success. So we've now helped over 12,500 businesses. We're connected to 300 plus service providers. So whether you need a bookkeeper or you want to connect with Deloitte, we have relationships with them. We've raised over £100 million worth of investment for those organizations. That includes grants and support. And we've supported thousands of organizations, including NHS and a range of other private, public, and third sectors, some that have scaled and exited, others that continue to undertake research and development. But from every sector, we've supported them. And then we had developed this, the Power of Three innovation framework about 4 years ago, and came up with Yola, which is a novel approach to innovation. And we developed the first level 6 qualification in business model innovation, focusing on three things: providing the right tools, developing the skills, and then informing and influencing the mindset to change belief and behaviors so that you can realize your potential and achieve real transformation in any organization. And the Power of Three is very much around design thinking methodologies, undertaking business model validation, communicating with purpose, the skill sets about developing, stretching, identifying appropriate resources, and the mindset is the most critical one, because that either a closed or an open mindset will help inform whether you're successful or not. And then we've used the innovation toolkits that we've developed into an inclusive innovation framework using the principles of innovation. Because if I ask people, how inclusive are they? How inclusive is their organization? Their natural reaction is that I'm criticizing or questioning them to see whether they are racist or prejudicial, and people get really uncomfortable and people go on the defensive. So I thought, what happens if we change the way we approach this and sort of said, okay, let's innovate. Let's see how we recognize that diverse organizations are far more profitable, they're far more successful, and they're far more innovative. Well, what happens, and because we know that, what happens if we approach inclusion in the same way and use innovation as the catalyst to have those conversations? And that's why the inclusive innovation framework comes about. And it's based on a number of elements, one being design thinking. So if your mindset is unprejudiced, it's open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. Design thinking is person-centered. It's based on this together alone. These graphics, for those of you who can see, are post-it notes. We use post-it notes. We use Sharpies. We use dots. It's co-creative. It's collaborative. It gives you creative confidence because everybody's contributing, and that's the benefit. Because if you give everyone a post-it note and you give everyone the opportunity to write something down, you don't get caught up in lots of conversations and people leading or influencing those conversations. You're able to contribute your view, hence the term together alone. And then because there's a virtuous circle to it, there's some noting and voting. It uses the double diamond, so we use discover, define, develop, deliver, converging, diverging, understanding, looking at what the problem really is, and then defining the area you want to work on, and then doing the same with solutions. But the inclusive innovation framework incorporates design thinking, data, and action to deploy, and it incorporates the tool set, skill set, mindset, and it uses the same principles as discover, define, develop, and deliver. But it's all about curiosity. So why does curiosity matter? Well, when we think about design thinking, and when we think about these type of principles, this is Yusuf and Zara, for those of you who can see the presentation, and they are my design thinking experts, and they are amazing at asking questions. Why does that happen? And they'll go and play and investigate. And actually, it's been proven that you need to adopt a young person, a child's mindset to explore, to truly understand, to go and ask those silly type of questions that you feel uncomfortable with asking. And secondly, if you want something you never had, you need to do something you've never done. A beginner's mind, it's free of prejudices, it's free of expectations, it's filled with curiosity, it's open to a world of possibilities, and you fail early on and often, and you learn quickly from that. And the behavior for successful application of a design thinking approach is we bid farewell to prejudices, we put aside expectations, we strengthen our curiosity, we open ourselves to new possibilities, and we ask simple questions. But more importantly, we try things out and we learn from it. And the expectations of these type of tools and processes are very much wiggly lines. It's not a linear, you start here and you finish here. You'll go up and down and back and forth. And it's common to feel that these type of things, the tools that we've developed, they feel a bit rushed, often feels like we're losing ideas. The exercises may feel weird or awkward. It's normal to not have any ideas. It's normal to feel like it's not going to work, but you need to trust the process is what you need to do. And everything that we've done was time boxed. We then asked everyone to consider the levels of inclusion, because at the top of the pyramid, you've got personal. So where do you personally feel included? You've then the organization that you either work with or engage with or interact with. And then the broader level, at the base level, is the community. And what does inclusion mean? So we then went on to ask everyone what inclusion means to them. And and um, and took them through this process. And it was wonderful that we had 275 responses, with belonging and acceptance being the top one. We then had, what does an inclusive Northeast look like? It's welcoming, it's positive, it's community, it's diverse. And then what does an inclusive organization look like? We had 164 responses that talked about, um, they talked about successful, diverse, happy, and such like. So then we had a range of guest speakers from Dr. Henry Kippen, who's the chief exec of the Combined Authority, and is going to be leading the devolution conversations, through to Manu Roshan from Young Asian Voices, through to Amjad Kazir, who couldn't be there personally, but was there virtually, to Hamid Motragi, the NHS's Director of Inclusion, to Dr. Peter Degby from the Chapel of Light, and our very own Ranjana Bell. And they all give different stories and explained what inclusion meant to them. And then in the afternoon, we hosted a very specific inclusive innovation framework that's proprietary. We've developed a rapid workshop, and everyone contributed, and it was amazing because the level of insights that we got through the Yola framework. And if you're listening, and if anyone's out there interested in how can you approach inclusion and innovation, and how can you adapt and adopt the two to lead to sticky, sustainable, successful change that educates beliefs and changes behaviors, then you need to use and adapt and adopt the inclusive innovation framework that we've developed. And I'm very happy to come and share that with you in your organization, our community group, wherever it is that you work and operate. We're here, we're on a mission to help make the Northeast the most inclusive region in the UK by the end of 2025. I'm also asking and encouraging everybody to to actually sign up to the to the um, the survey. So let me, for those who you are still viewing, certainly on YouTube and our news show, let me share this with you, because I'm keen to make sure that that you get the opportunity to contribute. And we'll get there in a minute, is what we will, as I'm rattling through this presentation. And as I'm rattling through this presentation, and for those of you who are listening on the radio show, I'm incredibly sorry, because I'm absolutely rubbish at multitasking. More broadly, what's going on in the news? Well, I suppose the headlines were things like the elections in America, where it would appear that Mr. Trump is taking the lead. And it's interesting because there's real question from an inclusion perspective, how many people actually agree with his views and his approach, and how little disagree with them. That he's winning all of these votes in such significant ways. And that was part of the conversation that we had yesterday in that room with lots of people, was very much the question around mainstream media, mainstream views, are those the views of the majority? And if not, Why doesn't the majority speak out more often? Is it because they're worried about what the minority are going to say and the cancel culture that exists? Anyway, I had invited someone onto the radio show, and I'm delighted that they've gate crashed in the last 10 minutes of the radio show. So, good morning, and you're very welcome, Mohammed. Hello, are you there?
Hi, hi, hello.
There.
Wow, I didn't realize you putting me live on the radio station. I thought I was just listening in.
No, no, you're live. Yeah, you're live on air. Please don't
Wow,
swear.
what a privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining me for the last 10 minutes of the show. Normally, I have a co-host who would be here, Jaff, and he's unwell. So I was reaching out to a few friends. I was phoning a friend and thinking, Mo, why don't you come on to the radio show and
Oh, wow.
and tell us who you are, what you do. We also record this, Mo, and it goes on YouTube and goes on our newsletter and things like that. So what I've done just before I ask you and invite you to introduce yourself, I went through the presentation that I somewhat delivered yesterday about the inclusion conference. So I'll get your feedback on that. But also, I was just at the final point going to put up the survey because we want everybody to complete this survey is what we want to do. So bear with me 1 second whilst I show that. Can you see that? Um, there's a survey there. It's probably going to look miniature on your phone, but I'm just sharing a screen. So we're asking everybody to complete this. Everybody, young, old, whatever color, race, religion you are, please click on these codes, QR codes. We also will be sending out the links and promoting the links, and we should have I apologize because the links should have been here. But if you do a scan of those QR codes, it would lead you to the survey and also to the questionnaire. How inclusive is your organization? So that you can go through the inclusive innovation questionnaire and benchmark and see how inclusive your organization is or isn't. Anyway, Mo, thank you. The sun's shining. How are you? Who are you? Who are you first and
Well,
foremost?
well, yeah. First and foremost, apologies. I'd never jump on a radio station live on air in my car. Number one. So this is completely ad hoc, and I thought I was simply listening, but it's a privilege to be on nonetheless. So yeah, and the other point I was going to make, even though you were explaining the format to me, I'm an avid listener of your radio station. I do actually watch you guys regularly and listen to your football updates and how
Oh,
vibrant
that's
you are
very
when
kind.
you got a Newcastle win. So it's noted nonetheless. But just a bit of background on myself. Mohammed Hussain, based in West Yorkshire, Bradford. Background in business consultancy and I guess multi-owner businesses. My baby is something called Pink Elephant, so it's in and around the property management world, and we operate throughout Yorkshire with 6 different sites. So I've got this isn't the beam that I naturally give off, you see, so I'm not used to this sun in my face. Yeah, and as well as that, various different board roles, obviously supporting whether it's networks or the FSB and various other bits. But through and through business, I'm a problem solver. This is what I like to be known as, and generally I've got the mindset is people make problems easy, and if we bring our heads together, we can do amazing things. So that's in a nutshell. I don't believe you've left the best till last for your radio station. That's the bit I'm not. I'm a bit surprised
Don't
about.
believe what? You don't believe what?
You've left the best till last. I'm referring to my my intro at this very last minute. But yeah, that's a quick snippet about me.
I certainly have left the best to the last, and you've kindly been supporting ABC. You made the visit yesterday to come along and support the Inclusion by Default conference more. Even though you're not a northeasterner, and for me that was a really big deal, because whilst we're creating the most inclusive region in the UK, the idea and the intention is to spread that love everywhere, and certainly across the north and into Yorkshire and the northwest. So having you actively involved and advising, supporting, informing the whole campaign, I think, is a really big deal.
Yeah, to be honest, I think firstly, it was great being there, to be honest. And I think sometimes what gets missed amongst many different events that we get invited to is the level of effort that goes into doing something that's significantly important to what happens over the next many years and has been happening previously. I think being there, it's close to my heart. Some of the things that were discussed, I think, interestingly, some of the health equity stuff was really interesting. And I think in some way, shape, or form, we, irrespective of color, race, religion, whatever it may be, we can relate to some of the messages that were coming out there, and work still needs to be done. But it was a great event, and you can clearly see from the traction it's pulled on LinkedIn and the various of the media platforms how popular and how important and significant it is. So no, thanks for having me more than anything.
Well, no, thank you for coming. Thank you ever so much for coming. And more state of the world, state of football. What's happening? Obviously, if Jeff's not here, then tell me, who do you support? Why
Well,
do you support? Obviously, it's not Newcastle,
well,
but
well, for the purpose of this call, I'm an avid Newcastle supporter.
way.
So that, but yeah, fresh news. If we're talking about football, Jurgen Klopp is hanging his boots at the end of the year. I don't know if you've seen that flash up on your phone yet.
No, yeah.
So interesting. Well, I think a loss for the Premier League, nonetheless, is I think is a great manager. Even though Liverpool, as I was growing up in my younger days, were the rivals. I was adopted into a Manchester United household, so you can imagine the rivalry we had with Liverpool. I think in my later years, and maybe this correlates with the lack of success with Man United, I've become a football fan and enjoy watching football altogether.
Right.
So yeah, so yeah, that's my history in football. But yeah, football. You tell me, what's
Yeah,
the update with
good.
Newcastle? Newcastle have had a bit of a wobble and now seem to be bouncing back.
Well, yeah, it's a hokey cokey. It's like football's a really interesting thing, right? It's far more dynamic that people jump in and out of it, dependent upon whether you're winning or you're losing. I find that extraordinary. For me, if you support someone or something, you support them through thick and thin, and you take the highs with the lows. Is what you do. But yeah, let's see what happens. I think it's good that they've had a break. It's really important that everyone's had a bit of a break. I think the intensity was something that Newcastle certainly weren't prepared for. Full stop. Anyway, conscious of time, more top tip. What's your number one business advice?
My number one business advice is you could potentially do any product, but it's people that make businesses. And I think co-create is my big thing for 2024. Is how do we co-create a better future? And it could be any product, it could be anything. It's a mindset shift that we've got to make. That's my big thing this year.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Co-create, mindset, both something that's incredibly close to my heart, and I'm ever so grateful for your interest in me asking you to support ABC as well, because I think
Hello,
you're doing
testing.
something
Hello,
incredibly unique.
testing. Hello.
We've come to the end of the show. Thank you ever so much more,
Nice one.
and grateful for that. All right, all the best. Take care.
Take care. See you later.
Bye. Bye.